Howdy all, it's Friday, and now it's once again Ty Day. Ty Anderson is back on the HockeyBuzzcast. Yeah.
What's up?
Want to touch on all of our experiences last night. Russ was at the Mets-Phillies game in Philadelphia. Ty was covering the New England Patriots game in Foxborough. Is it still Foxborough? Is that the
It's Gillette Stadium, but it's in Foxborough, yeah.
Okay. And unfortunately, I wasn't at a game. I was watching the dreadful Buffalo Bills performance at New Era Field. Boy, is this team going to suck. But want to start off with this because under Russ's prompting, he wants to talk about vanilla ice cream.
So when I was at the ball game yesterday and the Mets, they won 10-0, and Jacob deGrom, actually, it's kind of funny. He's 10-0 when he pitches against the Phillies. Like, the Mets are 10-0, which is kind of interesting. And he, even though, he doesn't get all those wins, even a no decision, the Mets seem to win those games. But he's also got 13 wins. He's 25% of the team's wins. Like, he's practically the whole team. But anyhow, while I was there enjoying that, I had a great vanilla custard. And honestly, there is nothing better than a great vanilla custard in like a waffle cone at a stadium. And I don't know why, but I'm assuming that when Ty was a small child, he was eating vanilla and someone grabbed it from him and finished it. It's something, because he's got this view on vanilla ice cream that's going to be different than mine.
Yeah, no, I actually wish that someone grabbed it out of my hand and ate it, because I don't want to finish it. It's very bad. No, I don't. See, I'm a weird dude. Everyone knows this. You follow me on Twitter. I have weird food opinions. I don't know why, but it's just how I am. So vanilla ice cream is a hard pass for me. Even like if something is like, example would be cookie dough. I'm like, nope, can't do it. Vanilla base, I'm not doing it. Like, I just don't like it.
Anything with a vanilla base.
Anything with a vanilla base. I was so bummed. A couple weeks ago, we went to this local ice cream place in my neighborhood, my girlfriend and I ordered orange pineapple ice cream. And I got really excited because like, this looks amazing, and came out, and it was vanilla ice cream, which is orange and pineapple swirls. Like, no! I was so pissed, but already paid. What are you gonna do?
Now, how did your girlfriend react? Did she roll her eyes like, oh man, she's getting tired?
Well, listen to this nonsense. Her favorite flavor of ice cream is vanilla.
Oh.
I'm like, what are you doing to me? I'm like, well, like what? Like, it's funny though. Like, there's a guy in Boston, Big Jim Murray. He works for 98.5 The Sports Hub. He works for my competitor.
Is he really big, or is he like 5'5"?
Oh, he's big, but he's a great guy. We're friends, and he's covering the game last night for 98.5's post-game show, and we finally met face to face. We're friends on Twitter, but we met, and DJ Bean, who used to cover the Bruins for WEI.com, works for CSNNE now in Boston. He goes, "Wow, it's like meeting the Batman and the Bane of food takes." I of course, being the Bane, the villain, hates everything, but I thought that was a little funny joke. But yeah, no, I mean that's my stance. No vanilla ever.
This would drive you crazy, Ty. And I won't name the name of the franchise, but there's a local franchise in the Buffalo area that everybody goes to for like soft ice cream, custard ice cream. And they have vanilla, they have chocolate, they have the twist, and they usually have a third flavor. Usually it's something like pistachio or banana or something out of the ordinary. But what they do is that they use the vanilla ice cream as the base, and they add flavoring to it. Right. So everything that third flavor is always a vanilla flavored pistachio or a vanilla flavored banana. It would drive you insane.
Yeah, I would hate everything about this.
I hope, I'm going to do some research. I hope that some of the chocolate ice cream that Ty is eating really has a vanilla base. Like, that would be an awesome discovery if I found that out.
Well, if Ty got a gallon of ice cream, you'd have that, Neapolitan is chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. You'd have basically the entire chocolate section and the entire strawberry section eaten out, and just this block of vanilla in the middle just left.
So I found a workaround for this, by the way, because that's a real thing. So I found the way around this, and it's.
Did you find a group online with more people like you? Is that what you did?
Yes.
Okay.
We're
anti-vanilla society.
Yeah, the AV club, anti-vanilla club. I went out and I got this Friendly's boxed ice cream, and it's called like Royal Banana Split. And I was like, all right, I'll see what this is. But it's similar to like the three flavors. It has chocolate, it has strawberry, no vanilla though, banana flavored ice cream, which is amazing. It's so good, and so that's a big thing. And I also bought This was a while ago now, but they have coconut milk ice cream sandwiches.
Yes.
In a split, and they have, and again, it's banana instead of vanilla. So, so that's a great workaround. If you can find that, you're anti-vanilla like me, man, that is a great combo right there.
Okay, just to touch on the football games, because you were at the Patriots game, Ty, and I mean, obviously, after winning the Super Bowl, the expectations are, it's Super Bowl or bust.
23-0, 23-0, 4 preseason, 16 regular season, 3 playoff.
Yeah, and I think the expectation for Buffalo, at least in this neck of the woods, is 0-23, because Tyrod Taylor went like 5 for 8 for 46 yards, and the last play in the game, and obviously all the scrubs, all the rookies and free agents are in there in the fourth quarter, but it's sort of symbolic of the Bills and their travails that the final snap was, I think, either over the third string quarterback's head, or it was a broken play, and he ended up falling on it. They didn't even have a chance to throw for a tying touchdown. All I know is it's a new coach. It's the same old quarterback. Not many changes. Everybody's expecting expecting them to do better, and from this corner of the world, I'm expecting them to do significantly worse. And
see, that's why I've got Buffalo tabbed as one of the Jets' 3 wins. I've got Buffalo, Cleveland, and Jacksonville, I think it is, as the Jets' 3 wins.
Well, this is, and I'm sort of working on this column for EEI right now, like about the NFL and the Patriots. Like, this could be the first year since the undefeated season that the Patriots have more wins than the rest of the division combined. Like, it looks bad. I know the Dolphins could be good. You say this about Cutler, but the Dolphins really called his bluff. Like, he was like, "Oh, you want me to play quarterback? That'll be $10 million." And they're like, "All right." And he's like, "Oh, wait, I got to play?"
Yeah, but he doesn't want to play. That's the thing.
That's the thing, yeah. And so that's a disaster waiting to happen. The Jets, you lose Enunwa before the season even begins. Like, his body said, "Don't do this to yourself. You're better than this." And you have the Bills, who are just the Bills. I mean, it's sad that this is what the division has come to, because I don't remember it being like this when I was growing up. And granted, I know the Patriots they have a stranglehold. They're a great team. I get it. But it's almost as if the other people in division are kind of waiting for the Patriots to go away. And if we learn anything, it's not going to happen. Like, they're going to continue to try to – that's why they haven't traded Garoppolo yet, because they think that they can still be a powerhouse even if they can find a way to keep him happy, as a backup until Brady goes away. So, and Brady may never go away. The guy may play till he's 60 for all we know.
And a couple things. I think Brady will play another year or two, and then I think he will hang it up. Now, I'm sure Miami felt the same way about Scott Mitchell, but you never know until Garoppolo's really in there. Because, again, we don't really know if it's more Tom Brady or more Belichick. Belichick gets a lot of credit because, he plugs in offensive and defensive players. But at the end of the day, Brady's still there and still steers the ship. So the answer to that question, we're not going to know for a while. The Jets thing is just it's ridiculous. Like, it's just it's as bad as the 1-15 season that I lived through. But I will say this, Ty, there was a year, like I want to say it was 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. Now it's probably 5 or 6 or 8 years ago now. The Jets did win the division with an 8-8 record.
Yeah.
Well, based on the current trend of Hogan, Gillislee, and Gilmore, the replacement quarterback for Tom Brady will be Tyrod Taylor. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, August 11th, 2017. Go ahead, Ty.
Oh, I'm Ty. Yeah, that's me. I'm Ty Anderson. I'm still Ty Anderson. Your favorite sports writer from WEEI.com and from HockeyBuzz.com. Maybe. I don't know. You probably hate me if you're watching this. But yeah, that's me.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Eklund will be back on Monday. We will be talking about the latest news and rumors in the NHL, and there's a few interesting items that popped up today. First of which, IIHF head Rene Fassel, I think, continues to stick his foot in his mouth when it comes to the upcoming Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea in February. He made a statement in our Hockey Buzz KHL correspondent Avis Kalinins tweeted out this morning. Fassel expects a few NHL players still to be present at the Olympics in South Korea. And of course, the first name that he references is Alex Ovechkin. Now, Ty, this is the thing, and I've been saying this all along, that, you know, now that the NHL has made it clear, anybody who's on an NHL contract, even if it's somebody who's playing in junior, even if it's somebody playing in the AHL, they're not going to be allowed to go. If a player does just say, I'm going, I think what Fasel is saying here is that the IIHF is not going to uphold this ban, and that it's going to go back on the NHL. And what I think this is going to force Bettman to do is have some sort of punitive damage against a particular player. Say Ovechkin, if he goes, I think before February, Bettman is going to make it known that anybody who goes to the Olympics will be suspended indefinitely, maybe for the rest of the season and the playoffs. That's the only way I think he prevents players from going. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a curious situation. I think that a simple way to do it, because I think if he tried doing that, it would create this gigantic sort of cluster where people are questioning his power, how much authority should he have. It could be very similar to a Roger Goodell situation where it's, you know, the players are going to have an uproar and say, no, the commissioner cannot have this much power. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's something maybe along the lines of, you know, you're suspended for every Olympic game you play in counts as a 1-game suspension when you come back home. So now your original, you know, if it's 2.5 weeks, your original 6-game absence becomes a 12-game absence if you play in 6 Olympic games, things like that. You make your team hurt more than you initially anticipated. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that. I couldn't see them throwing the whole book at these players. You know, Ovi, he sort of can do whatever he wants, clearly, in Washington, and his owner has supported him with this before. I'm sure he'd do it again because he understands that Ovi is the straw that stirs that drink in that city, and as far as hockey goes, and selling tickets, selling revenue, you know, ad revenue, I should say. I mean, he really is the guy there. So he's going to get support from that, and it's going to be interesting to see which owners support their players. I mean, you really don't want to piss off your marquee free agent, especially your marquee talent, your captain, a pending free agent. You don't want to do that if you're an owner invested in winning. Well, so this is going to be an interesting situation. I know Jacobs is not going to allow any Bruins to participate in the Olympics, no matter what, which is a little bit of a bummer for some guys in that room, especially some of the older players who have not, you know, this would be their last time in the Olympics. Talking about captain who's 40 years old now. Yeah. But this is a real thing, though, that they're going to have to battle, and the players I've talked to are already pissed off about this situation, and I can't see it getting any better the closer we get to February.
See, Russ, looking at the echo again here. Ty, try to log off and log back on.
Sure.
Thanks. Russ, the thing with what Ty was suggesting, the 1-for-1 type of suspension, is I think that, say, Ted Leonsis, when it comes to Ovechkin, if it's 1-for-1 and he loses him for 6 or 7 games and it's 12 or 14, I think Leonsis will allow Ovechkin to go, because that's not what I would say is punitive. It's not they don't want to lose him for 12 games, but because it's Ovechkin, because he's a star player, they will allow him to do it. That's why I think something really heavy, something that has question marks to it, like the fact that they suspend him indefinitely and then they leave it up, you know, I think that would basically have a chilling effect on Leonsis, giving a rubber stamp to Ovechkin and letting him go. What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, and Ty brought up a good point with Roger Goodell, but Goodell still carries the same power he did before all the players complained about all these suspensions and the time of suspensions and everything. The power shift hasn't changed. It's just the complaining has risen, but players are still getting paid. And so I think it's going to be the same thing in the NHL. I think Bettman is going to come down hard, maybe somewhere in between what we think and what Ty thinks. And I don't know if Leonsis will let Ovechkin go at that point, because he hasn't won a cup. His job could be hanging in the balance. Mm-hmm. If the division is tight at that time and they're not running away with it, I don't know. He's going to have to look at Ovechkin and say, listen, you're the captain. You're going to now lead this team. And when you come back, we have to hope that we're still in the race, or at least not giving up too many games in the race. Like, that's, you know, it's a complicated thing. Me personally, I get how these players want to play in the Olympics, mm-hmm. But I got to tell you something. Team first. And I'm getting paid by that team, and the country's not paying me. The country, you know, there's been opportunities for all these guys to play for the country, but the country's not paying me. I would not be able to look at those guys in the room, to be honest.
Yeah.
If I was the one that left because I was allowed to, and they weren't.
And don't you think that, say, Leonsis says, "Okay, Alex, you can go." Don't you think that is going to raise a bit of dissension in that locker room? Because I'm sure Nicholas Backstrom wants to go to play for Sweden. I'm sure Kuznetsov and Orlov want to go play for Russia. I'm sure
I think it will.
Yeah, I'm sure Carlson wants to go play for Team USA. I think, you know, yes, Ovechkin is this, as you said, Ty, the straw that stirs the drink. But I still think that if it applies to him, they're going to say it should apply to us too. And that's why I think the NHL has got to be really strict and really, you know, and don't leave any wiggle room. Either if you go, you're being suspended indefinitely, and then you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe the NHL after the fact says you can play in the playoffs, but I think they're trying to put the fear of God into them and say, you're not going because we don't want you to go. And
well, let me complicate this further. Okay. So regardless of what they say in Russia, like, hey, Alex, we got you covered under insurance, whatever. You know, what if Alex does go, does get hurt, and he's out for the rest of his career? You don't think that that's going to be a massive legal battle now? Because all of a sudden, as rich as Ted Leonsis is, he still probably doesn't want to pay the remainder of Alex Ovechkin's contract if he never plays another game for the Capitals, right? And that's a big problem. And so that's where I think you can't let a guy go, because he's going to have to cover his own insurance. And if I'm the owner, I'm going to say, listen, Alex, just so we're square, my lawyer has written up these papers. If you get hurt and you can't ever play for the Capitals again, you're foregoing the rest of your salary. That's what I would do as the owner.
It's a messy situation, and the worst part about it is the fact that, you know, now the NHL is going to pick and choose what countries are worth their time. It's a little insulting. I think it's a little insulting that you're going to tell me that Korea is not worth your time, but China is. And you know why China is? Because there's money there, and it's just a totally wrong approach. I mean, this, you know, the NHL said they're committed to growing the game globally. That's why they're going to have a game in China, a preseason game. That's why they send some of these players to China for like marketing trips and things of that nature. Why are you confining yourself to one country? Why aren't, like, you know, like China hasn't produced an NHL player yet, to my knowledge. Korea has, though. We have Richard Park was an NHL player from Korea. I mean, it's really ridiculous to me that we're going to pick and choose what countries are worth our time. And the NHL, you know, the sport that is teetering on becoming the 5th most popular sport in America behind soccer now, I really think that they don't have the leverage to do this and to play this game. And, you know, and I hate the idea that, I know Gary Bettman came out last month and he said, you know, we've been underserved by mainstream media. Okay, well, don't skip the thing that's going to be on mainstream media. I don't care if there's a time delay. People will watch. We all got up at 5 in the morning to watch TJ Oshie take down Russia in a shootout on a random day. I mean, people are going to watch. And so for them to sit there and cry, no one pays attention to us while not going to the Olympics is ridiculous. But it's also very typical NHL, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's less about the number of people that are watching and more about them getting preferential treatment from the IOC. And that's why, I mean, it was very, very interesting that Bettman went over with Donald Fear to announce those not meaningless, but normally the commissioner of the NHL and the head of the PA don't go to China to announce preseason games. I think they went over there to sort of lay the groundwork to getting the Chinese government to help them get some leverage on the IOC to get preferential treatment for 4 years down the road. And that's that, you know, they're not getting anything from the IOC. The IOC is not giving them any kind of preferential treatment. That's clear. And they want that, and if they're not getting it, they're going to keep their players and stay home. And you're going to see, you know, Mason Raymond, Ben Scrivens, and you know, guys like that playing in the Olympics. We've seen it before. We'll see it again.
It's just it's so ridiculous to me because of the fact that, you know, I talk to players and they tell me, hey, look back at the last few Olympics. What closes the Olympics? It's the gold medal game. It's the gold medal game in hockey. Yep. So to sit there and say, you know, we want this, we want that, it's like you guys are already the talk of the Olympics every year. I mean, that's what everyone wants to really focus in on, I think, in terms of what's the big closing event, what is the perfect sort of finale. So it's just, I mean, I hate it. I think the biggest losers in this, besides the NHL, are Team USA fans. I mean, this was going to be a great USA team with Eichel and with Matthews and Gaudreau. And sure, they could still be good in China, but I mean, this was sort of the year that I thought that the USA would have a really great chance.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, and a guy like Crosby, who just turned 30, when he's 35 at the next Olympics, he may still make it because he's Crosby, but he's probably not going to be the force that he is right now. So I think that hurts. And their top two centers, Team Canada, are Crosby and Taves, and both will be in their mid-30s when the next Olympics come around.
Yeah, Mike, there'll be a big drop-off. Like when Crosby's 35, he'll probably just play like Bergeron.
Yeah. We all know how bad that is.
Yeah, that really sucks. Now, okay, so we talked yesterday. We talked yesterday about players that have not signed contracts. One of the players who's most prominent is Pastrnak, David Pastrnak of the Bruins. If you look at the Bruins cap situation right now, they've got the room. They're a little over $10 million according to our Cap Central, and so they have the money to sign Pastrnak right now. I would think, Ty, I want to get an update from you. I would think it's a sort of a bickering right now about length of contract and about the amount. What have you heard regarding Pasternak's new deal?
So the Bruins have not made as much progress as they thought they would by this point. I mean, if Sweeney had his way, it would have been signed and done by now. But there is some squabbling over the money and the length of the contract. I think that the Bruins sort of have always had Pastrnak sort of fit in at Philip Forsberg's 6 years, $6 million per, or maybe Sean Monahan's, which is I think 6.3 mil. I want to say. I think they've always kind of viewed him around that time frame based on his production, what he's done so far. The points per game, the production, the goals. It sort of aligns with what those guys did to that point. But I do think that Pasternak's camp is saying, well, we're 7 years, $7 mil per year. I think that's sort of where they are. So they need to find somewhere in the middle there. And that's a lot trickier than you think, especially when you're talking about bonus money. Everyone wants to lockout-proof these contracts, and the Bruins can do it. We all know that they have the money. It's just a matter of do they want to do it. This is something that they really haven't done before. If you look back at David Backes's contract, it was a regular contract. It wasn't, hey, here's 30 mil and 28 are in bonuses right now. It wasn't structured like that. So they have some work to do. And really what's happening because of this is that they're not making any other moves right now. I mean, they have been talking to Drew Stafford. They're still in touch. They've been talking to some veteran free agents, both defensemen and wingers, more of a PTO basis kind of with some of those players. But at the same time, I mean, they really can't do much of anything until they get the situation squared up, because you don't know if you're going to be paying this player 6.5 or 7 or 7.2, whatever the case may be. I mean, you're going to have to pay him. It's just, it really puts them in a holding pattern here where they are just stuck in the mud until this decision happens. But, I wrote this before. The one way for them to lose this negotiation would be to sign him to a bridge deal. If you give him a 2-year bridge deal, he's now a free agent when Brandon Carlo and Charlie McAvoy are RFAs too. You don't want to deal with that kind of situation, especially if these players continue to trend upwards. So it's a holding pattern. It's just a bizarre situation.
That's just pushing it down the road. Ross, I think the Bruins really have to get – I mean, Pastrnak is you've seen the progress over the last couple years. I mean, and last year – I mean, he was arguably one of the top, I'd say, 3 or 4 wingers in the league. I mean, I think the Bruins really have to get him locked up. But if you look at the Bruins salary structure, I mean, the Krejci contract is ridiculous. I think they have to find a way to get rid of that deal. It'll be easier said than done. But I think they want to pay him in the range of Bergeron and Marchand, and they don't want to go above those 2 players. Yeah,
but here's the thing. I mean, with the other guys out there not being paid in Eichel and Draisaitl, there's no way Jeremy Jacobs is signing Pastrnak first. Like, he's not that guy. He's always going to have the hardest negotiation, always going to be the tightest with money.
Mm-hmm. And he took Ray Bourque to arbitration.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
He's got to prove himself. He's only going to be he's not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
And we've been talking about this for a while, and I know that they want Drew Stafford, but you know what? Now Minnesota's starting to talk to Drew Stafford. Like, they literally could lose a player by digging their feet into this negotiation. And that would be the biggest loss, Ty, in the negotiation, is that even if they got Pasternak at their price, if they lost other players as a result.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because you have all these GMs sort of waiting for the other guy to make a move.
Right.
And it's like we're all just sitting here like, all right, any day now. We're all waiting. We're all here. Like, somebody sign somebody, please. So, no, and that's a real thing. I mean, the Bruins have to be honest with themselves. They can't look at this roster and say, okay, yeah, it's fine. Danton Heinen, Jake DeBrusk, Zach Senyshyn, and Anders Bjork are all going to step in and they're going to be fine. Like, it's never, ever worked like that. So they need to have these backup plans in place. And the longer this goes, the more, these backup plans, if you will, fall off the board, like Stafford, like even a guy, not to say that they have interest, but a guy like Brian Giunta even, where, this is a veteran winger you could bring in on a PTO and get a roster spot. Who's to say he doesn't get invited by somebody else to camp, and now you're missing out on that player. So so they need to get this settled by the time training camp opens, in my opinion, because it's a situation they need this player a lot more than I think they realize. And at the same time, Pasternak is going to hit a point where he wants to play. He's going to say, hey, enough of this, I want to play. And that's when you talk about a bridge deal, a 1-year deal, and that's when you get in trouble for the Bruins.
Here's the thing. What could happen here that none of us are talking about, which nowadays, just because of the way finances are, there is a possibility that there's 3 bridge deals signed here and none of them get that long-term deal before the season starts. There is that possibility, I think.
Well, okay, and talking about that, TSN's Darren Drager was on Buffalo Radio this morning and commented on specifically Draisaitl and Eichel, the other 2 big RFAs. And with Draisaitl, he said there's hesitancy out there on the part of Edmonton to give him the long-term deal after the one big year and the one big playoff. And that is understandable, but the thing is that the longer you wait, I mean, this is the problem. If you do a deal like Montreal did with Subban or Tampa Bay did with Kucherov, you're just pushing the dilemma down the road a couple years. And in the end, if these players are successful as you think they are,
other money will come off the books. That's the thing.
Well, yes, yeah. Well, I mean, in the case of Tampa, I don't see a ton of money coming off the books when Kucherov's deal is up in 2 years, and we know that Montreal. I mean, they'll
buy out Callahan, so they will have money coming off the books.
Maybe, and then Braden Colburn's deal might be over with, but you're talking about a guy who would probably deserve to get a $9 million contract, as much or more than Stamkos, the way he's played the last 2 years. But
Draisaitl is not getting the 9. I think here's what I would. I mean, if I'm the team, what I would say to Draisaitl is, can we come to an agreement on 5? Because in 5, Luchik's contract will be off the books. I think at that point it might be, and if we do that, then we're in a better situation to give you the deal you want, or you want to go short term, and we'll do this again down the road, because we're just not giving you the top dollar on the market. We're just not doing it.
I mean, all the pressure goes back on the player in that instance. Now, in regards to Eichel, Drager said that the 2 sides are getting closer, but there's still a gap over money. They're basically talking about in the $7.5 to $8 million range. Apparently, Eichel wants more than that, and maybe I don't know, maybe deserves it. I mean, Ty, he scored basically the same amount of points in his second year that he did in his rookie year, but did it in 20 less games. And doesn't seem to be any hesitancy on the part of Eichel to sign a long-term extension in Buffalo. But I think he wants that commitment, that monetary commitment. And if he doesn't get it, then maybe he goes bridge deal like Kucherov, like possibly Draisaitl goes. What do you think in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is a player that the Sabres need to keep happy. I mean, that's just really as simple as that, because they're not going to get a star free agent there. And you look around them, and it's not as if he's being pushed by any other young talents. Maybe that's not the right way to phrase it, but he is the guy there, and so he wants to be paid like it. And listen, Pegula's got the money. I mean, there's no doubt about that. They have it. The situation where they can pay him handsomely. And I think that you look at his projection. I mean, he is going to be a top-tier talent. And imagine if you get him a winger. Imagine if you get him a star player to put next to him. I mean, he can be even better. That production can go up. I don't want to say double, but it can be on the lines of a superstar-type talent. So I think you have to go with what he wants here. And I know that's a tough way to live if you're an owner, if you're a GM, but I mean, I think few players can hold a franchise hostage and like with their situation, like Eichel can with Buffalo. It's one of those things where, I mean, he can command the moon, and they almost have to do it because of who they are as a franchise, where they've been as a franchise, and what he is.
Owner. This is a failing of the owner, though, because like the GM there can have the hardest negotiation they want, and it does seem like the owner will always be willing to kick in that extra, like with Matt Molson. Like you go back to that contract and you say, what were you thinking? Like that was one of the worst contracts I could think of in the last 5 years. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think if you're Eichel, you kind of know in the back of your mind, you've seen this owner pay a lot of money to lesser talent. So you're right. He does sort of have him over a barrel.
Yeah, and Molson's contract will be bought out at the end of this year because he's got 1 year left. It was a front-loaded deal. So, but Drager made the point that there's not a ton of pressure in the sense that there is a year left on this deal. Right. But if Eichel has a big start, then you might see Buffalo sign him to the extension mid-season because they know they're going to have to pay, and then they just say, okay, we surrender. You're the guy. And that's it. Two other things that Drager mentioned. One, Matt Duchene, the situation in Colorado. He is basically willing to consider any option out there that would get him out of Colorado. Now that goes counter to sort of the niceties that Duchene was saying in a piece a couple weeks ago that he liked playing in Colorado, but he just I mean that's all fine and good. I think that tries to take the pressure off of the Avalanche. But right now, Ty, I mean, I would be absolutely shocked if Matt Duchene plays more than 20 games in Colorado before he gets dealt. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, this situation is so bad. This franchise is a disaster. They have 3 NHL defensemen signed to contracts, 3 of them. I mean, it's just this is not like there's tanking. And there's being bad, and then there's this. This is incompetence at the highest level possible. I mean, Duchene he's not a bad player, and he's actually a pretty damn good player. It's just this disaster has consumed him, and it's made him, dying to get out of a situation. If you remember this, the Avs were his favorite team as a kid, and he doesn't want to be there anymore. I mean, it speaks to just what they've done and what they've mismanaged there. I mean, it is just. I thought that Patrick Waugh was a problem, but it's almost like he saw the writing on the wall and said, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be a part of this, which I didn't see coming. So, I mean, this is just an ugly situation. It has to get remedied. I mean, he has to be moved. It's not to say that he's not the kind of guy that would walk in and pout and be a troublemaker if he's not traded. But you just think that at some point, Sakic's going to have to bite the bullet here and say, okay, I'm going to have to accept a trade that I don't necessarily love, but it moves us on from this saga, and it lets this player get a fresh start before the returns that I would get are diminished because of what he is right now.
And Russ, he's going
to start the season with Colorado. I'm telling you.
Well, no. I think that's basically a foregone conclusion right now. But the other name in a similar situation was Evander Kane, and what Drager said was essentially the same thing. It sounds like that. We always talk about American Thanksgiving as that sort of line of demarcation where teams take stock of what they have, and then around the 20-game mark, around American Thanksgiving, they reevaluate where they are, and then they're more willing to make a deal. From what Drager is saying, he's like, well, Evander Kane, right now there's nothing but, little into the season, maybe that happens. So it sounds to me like around American Thanksgiving, you'll have Duchene, you'll have Kane probably still in Buffalo, still in Colorado, and then maybe there's the opportunity to move them. But it sounds like both clubs aren't happy with what offers they're getting from teams, and that's why they haven't been moved.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And look, Kane, it's a lot more complicated than Duchene. Yes. Duchene is just because they're not happy with the offers they're getting. Right. Kane, it's probably like you have to really push somebody on Kane to to get them to want him, and then you're definitely not getting the return you want. But I think Buffalo knows that, though.
Yeah, I mean, with Duchesne, there may have been a little bit of on-ice concern because I think he scored like 5 points in his last 25 games in Colorado. With Kane, it's all off the ice. It's all, the distraction that he continues to make for himself with his bad judgment.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to talk about this, and I know that, Ty, when we were talking before the show, we were talking about Tuukka Rask, and this is the thing from an outside perspective. Tuukka Rask was a Maple Leaf draft pick. He was involved in that wonderful Andrew Raycroft deal, which you'll probably read about in one of my columns on Hockey Buzz, because I'm reviewing the bad moves that the Maple Leafs made over the last 500 years.
They make the playoffs, and you're still the most negative person in the world. It's unbelievable. Only you.
But this is the thing I don't understand. I consider Tuukka Rask one of I would say maybe the top 7 or 8 goaltenders in the NHL. And from what you were telling me, the reaction about him on social media from Boston fans is just, it's not consistent with the type of goaltender that he is. I don't get it. Why are they so rough on Tuukka Rask?
Well, I think the contract plays an issue, $7 million a season. But when people bring that up, they often forget that they got 1 year of him at $3.5 million, and that was the year they lost to the Blackhawks. He took a 1-year gamble on himself. Blame the Bruins. Don't blame Tuukka for that. I mean, he's not going to deny that contract. He really earned it on that run. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the big issues is that they sort of, and this is no fault of Tuukka's, in my opinion, it's just people remember Tim Thomas. They remember 2011. They remember a wire-to-wire run in which this guy was a brick wall and was impossible to beat. So they look at Rask and they see his style, the butterfly style, the very sound mechanically sort of style, and they think he's not trying. They think he's lazy. They think he's this. They view him as a quitter and a choke artist because he had a norovirus and didn't play with food poisoning on the final game of the season in 2016. And so, it's one of these situations where the public perception of him is different through no fault of his own, really. I mean, they remember this wild goalie who would literally fight guys in the crease for positioning, and then they see him in this sort of this beautiful butterfly style where it's always the positioning, the angles, they're always right, and they view it as not trying. So it's one of those situations where it's just the perception is a lot different than the reality, I think, when it comes to analyzing Tuukka Rask's game and what he is to this team.
There's no doubt about the Thomas thing, because I was telling Mike that off the air. Like, I felt like that was an issue. I saw Rask lead in the World Juniors. Unfortunately, from the World Juniors to now, Rask still has a similar body type. And so the big problem with the Bruins is, because their backup goaltending hasn't been great, is that when they're riding Tuukka Rask late in the season and he's playing too many games, it does pay a price in the playoffs. And that is to me, that has been the biggest issue. Now, if you want to know how much of a battler Tuukka Rask is, when he blows up and breaks his goalie stick on the net, that takes a lot for him to do that. Like, because he tries to channel it and he tries to be Lundqvist-like, but he does get mad and he will have those outbursts. And that's the competitive nature that you want in a goalie. Like, I don't get it. But again, the Ranger fan base, there's 30-40% that don't like Lundqvist. Why? Because he hasn't won a cup. That's the reason why.
And see, this is the thing I don't understand, and I'm just like thinking through my head here regarding, goaltenders who had like ridiculous standout years that either ended up in the team getting to the Stanley Cup final or winning a Stanley Cup, and you've got Bernie Parent in '75, the Flyers win the Cup. '87 with Ron Hextall and the Flyers getting to Game 7 against the Oilers. J.S. Jaguar in 2003 getting the Ducks. And Thomas's year in 2011 was like that. He stood on his head. He got and that was with a team that had a really good defense, but that's a team that was at that could have lost in the first round to Montreal in Game 7 in overtime. And if they would have, probably Claude Julien and Chiarelli would have gotten fired, but they did get through. They did win the cup, coming back against the Canucks. And, Tim Thomas looks like the hero because he's an unorthodox goaltender, flopping all over the place like Dominik Hasek did in '99 for the Sabres. But just because Tuukka Rask is more technically sound than Tim Thomas or Dominik Hasek doesn't mean he's lazy. It just means he's a different style goaltender. So
he's committed to it. The other thing is, how much more mileage does a Tuukka Rask have on him than Tim Thomas had on him before the run. Like clearly, Tim Thomas.
That was it.
He didn't play a ton of games before that run. He played in different places, but he didn't play the amount of games that Rask is playing. And so that's another factor. And that's another factor. And that's why the backup goalie is a key thing in Boston, and it's a key failure for them. Like for the last 2 or 3 years, the backup goalie in Boston has been a failure.
Yeah, they're sub 500, and their save percentage is a 902. It's below replacement. It's below replacement
I think
level.
It goes back further. Ty, I'm going to give you something that when Mike Sullivan was the coach, Andrew Raycroft, who Mike brought up so proudly, had played something like 17 games in a row, even during Sullivan's year. And I remember saying to Raycroft, well, how is it? And he wasn't thrilled about it, but this happens in Boston because clearly Sullivan saw what his backup was and said, I got to play Raycroft.
And that was really Thomas's last hurrah, because the next year they lost to the Capitals in the first round. And then 2013, Rask was the goalie that carried him to the final against Chicago. So
but we still want Tim to come out of retirement and be the Team USA goalie in the Olympics. Tim, come out of retirement.
But I think it is sort of like, and I'm not saying intellectually lazy, but I think it's easy for these hockey, traditional hockey markets. Toronto has always been rough on goaltenders. They're ready to ascend them to Mount Olympus when they're playing great, but when they're playing subpar, like James Reimer did in the last couple of years. I mean, his rookie year.
Mason. See how Steve Mason's little run was.
Right, Philadelphia, Toronto, the Rangers. I think Vancouver has been traditionally a very tough market on goaltenders. I mean, they basically ran Roberto Luongo out of town. So.
I mean, it took Carey Price 4 years to rebuild his reputation as a legitimately elite goaltender. Half that fan base wanted Halak.
You're right. The playoffs did that, and he played the Flyers in the playoffs and was legitimately just horrible. And that gave Halak his big chance, and that did hurt Price for a while. It's true.
And it was about 50-50. They wanted Price traded and Halak to be the number one in Montreal after 2010. Okay. Got a little game here because, again, there's not a ton of hockey news going on. There are obviously a lot of trades, a lot of free agent signings in the league from July 1st, a lot of trades at the draft and after. And, we've got players on new teams. Some of these players are, I think, in my mind, are set up for success where they've gone to the right place. They'll be a perfect fit, and they will thrive with their new team. Whereas other ones, I think, are under a lot of pressure, and there's a very good possibility that they are set up for failure. So I got 4 lists of 3 players here. Basically same positions or same situations, and I want you to pick either one who is either set up for success, or best set up for success, or best set up for failure with their new teams. The first one is 3 defensemen. 2 were signed as free agents. 1 was acquired in a trade. Carl Alzner going to the Montreal Canadiens, Kevin Shattenkirk with the New York Rangers, and Travis Hamonic, who was traded from the Islanders to Calgary. Russ, which one is best set up for either success or failure with their new team?
I think Hamonic is best set up for success because I don't think anybody, and us included, could pinpoint what Hamonic would have to do to be a failure in Calgary. Because, he's not a great offensive defenseman. He's a really good puck-moving defenseman. He's a good defenseman. He's not a 1. Maybe he's a 2 or 3 or a 4. He doesn't have the same pressure as these other guys. If Travis Hamonic just goes in and has a good year, everybody says, hey, that was great.
Ty?
I'll go Shattenkirk because the contract is relatively friendly versus what you thought he was going to be making. He fits a need for the Rangers in a big way. Mm-hmm. And also I think that it's a situation where, he can kind of put Washington behind him now that he has increased exposure to the division and what he needs to do to be successful in the division. I do think that is going to work to his benefit. Mm-hmm. And also, let's not ignore the fact that I think Alain Vigneault knows how to use puck movers. I think that's sort of something that he's been pretty good at in his career. So I think Shattenkirk's in a great situation here where he is the hometown guy. But, I mean, that's not going to derail who he is as a player, in my opinion. He's been through the wars. He's been for Team USA. I mean, he knows what he's doing. So I think he is the right fit for the Rangers, who, their window is now. They got to win with these next few years. He's the perfect fit for that.
Well, it's ironic that you guys go to the light and I go to the darkness. But I agree. I agree on your point. I mean, with Hamonic, he's the number 4 in Calgary behind Hamilton, Giordano, and Brody. So there's no real pressure on him, and I think he can be that shutdown defenseman that that will really help them. And Shattenkirk, the 4-year deal, I think if it was a 7-year deal for $7 million, there would be a ton of pressure on him.
Wade Redden kind of pressure.
Exactly. I think the one that is set up for failure is Karl Alzner, because with the departure of Markov, with the changes in Montreal, right now he's the number 3 behind Shea Weber, who's a great defenseman, and Jeff Petrie, who I think was about to hit free agency at the right time and hit the jackpot. They're going to expect Alzner to probably score some points, and he's not that type of defenseman. He's a shutdown defenseman. And I think that, especially the Montreal media, we know how they devour people.
Just think about this. This is a good head-scratcher. Jeff Petrie, in a couple of years, probably made more money than his dad, or is his uncle? I forget it.
No, his dad.
His dad, in his entire pitching career, and he would win 15 games a year. Like, he was a really good pitcher. Yeah, and Jeff Petrie is an okay defenseman.
Yeah. Second list, goaltenders. All, I would say, well, one might be the potential starter. We don't know. It's Philadelphia, so you never know who's going to start in goal. Scott Darling in Carolina, Brian Elliott in Philadelphia, and Mike Smith in Calgary. Which one is best set up for either success or failure, Ty?
Smith is set up for failure in Calgary because they have that defense, that run and gun system, but he is just not that good anymore. I really don't see it. I think the workload over the years has taken a toll on him. That Division II, I think you're looking at some of the teams that can score goals there. I just think it's a similar situation in terms of the volume he'll be facing from these offenses. And I don't know if Calgary can keep up with that. And it just seems like it's a short-term plug-in, which it absolutely is. But I just don't see it being a substantial upgrade over what they've had.
Russ?
I'm going to go Scott Darling for success because really with that team's young defense, with the puck movers they have, with the team speed that they have, all he has to be is big and good positionally. And so far he's shown to do that. And so if he just does that, he'll be fine. The only thing he's going up against is that he's supplanting, Cam Ward, who they love. And that's the little bit of the tightrope, but they're very forgiving down there. And I think, and they pregame like crazy. So I don't know how many people are paying attention after they're cleaning off all the food. And you ever see like their pregames there? It's like they
racks of ribs.
They do racks of ribs, but they do it like it's not like they're using like paper napkins and stuff. They're using like real china. They have like white tablecloth tables. So after you put all that attention into that, I don't know how much attention they're paying to hockey.
As soon as you said ribs, Kaya got hungry. I will say, again, me going to the dark side, I will say that the one set up for failure is Elliott in Philadelphia. Because first of all, I think that the number 1 goaltender will probably be God, I'm drawing a blank
Michael
right now.
Neuwirth to start.
Michael Neuwirth, thank you. That's how good he is. He's young, he's forgettable.
He's a favorite of Dave Haxtell, so he probably will start.
Right. And Elliott is making a little less than $3 million to be basically a 1B. Eventually, Haxtell will go to Elliott to try to carry the Flyers. And first of all, I think the Flyers, they have the firepower up front with Giroux and with Voracek and with Simmons, but their defense is very young. And we may see guys like Sanheim. We know we're going to see Gostisbehere. We know we're going to see Provorov, but given lots of ice time. But defensively, it's going to take them a couple years to really get to the level where I think that they can contend for the playoffs every year and be really good and solid on the blue line. When these young defensemen are learning, they're going to make mistakes, and it's going to be up to Neuwirth and Elliott to sort of keep things above their heads above water, and I don't think either one are capable of doing that. So I think, and we know how Philadelphia is tough on goaltenders, so I think he'll take a lot of heat.
It's going to be hard. I have breaking news.
Go ahead.
Just look at this garbage. See, we're enjoying the summer. It's nice.
I don't know if this was a fake thing and I have to do a little more digging, but a friend of mine in Toronto sent me. Now, Perry's ice cream is the ice cream that comes from the Buffalo area. It's very good ice cream. It's distributed all over the country, and they had a buffalo wing ice cream. I don't know if this was a fake thing or a real thing, but if it is real, it is absolutely disgusting.
That sounds terrible.
It sounds it sounds absolutely horrible. I had some buffalo wing peanuts. Somebody gave me those, and they were gross. It was just hot and sweet peanuts. No,
Here's the thing. No, stop pushing pumpkin in August.
It's Russ. It's like Christmas. They start celebrating Christmas in mid-October now.
I gotta tell you. Here's the funny thing, right? So I go into like Walgreens for my softball game, and I like to get a little sugar boost. And so I was looking for Reese's peanut butter cups. It took me like 3 minutes to actually find regular Reese's peanut butter cups because there's like 20 different types now.
Yes.
White chocolate, dark chocolate,
thick,
with nuts.
Not thick, crunchy, not crunchy. It's like, so M&M's, like how many flavors are M&M's up to? Seriously. I mean, come on.
The best ones are the coffee nut ones. I don't even like coffee, and I like those. Those are really good.
They have the mini ones now too. Okay, getting back on the list here. Three forwards, all of a veteran nature. Patrick Marleau signed as a free agent by the Maple Leafs. Alex Radulov signs a big deal with the Dallas Stars. Jordan Eberle gets swapped from Edmonton to the Islanders for Ryan Strome. Russ, you first. Which one do you think is best set up for success or failure?
Yeah, I'm going to go Eberle for failure because if they pair him with Tavares, they're going to expect Jordan Eberle to have his best year ever. And if he doesn't start out well, like look what happened last year to Andrew Ladd, and we all thought, uh-oh, what's going on with Andrew Ladd? And then he did finish very strong, and so maybe Andrew Ladd had to figure it out. If Jordan Eberle starts off even a little bit off because of the way that team needs players to score, he's going to hear it from the fans. He's going to hear it in the newspapers. So unfortunately, I think it's Jordan Eberle for failure.
Ty?
Who are the other two besides Eberle? I just saw that Watkins got traded, so that consumed me.
Sammy Watkins got traded?
Yes, he did.
Oh, Jesus Christ. The Bills are going 0-16.
Rest in peace, Buffalo.
Did they say where for who?
Yeah, he got traded to the Los Angeles Rams, and then the Bills then acquired Matthews from the Eagles.
Oh, Jordan Matthews. Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's a big mistake for the Eagles too. But this is a hockey show, so
Sorry. So who are the other two guys?
Okay, the other two guys are Patrick Marleau with the Leafs and Alex Radulov with the Dallas Stars, as Bills Nation cries.
I'll go Radulov with the Stars for success because of who he's playing with. I mean, if they load up their top line and they do Ben, Sagan, Radulov, that is, you can't cover all three. I mean, you just can't. So I do think that is the best situation. But Marleau would be a close one for me too. I think Radulov, I think he's, people will question his heart, his commitment, his desire. I think he's a little pissed about the whole Montreal thing. So expect him year one to come out, guns blazing here. I'll
be labeled as a homer here, but I think at least in the first 2 years of this deal, Marleau might be set up for success, a good amount of success, especially if Babcock puts him on Matthews' line, which I think is possible. I mean, I think they may move Zach Hyman to a checking line and put Marleau with Matthews and Nylander to provide some veteran stability. If they continue and they put him on a different line, I think it may be a little different, but I think he's set up for success. There's enough of a young core, and I don't think all the pressure is on Marleau to produce big numbers. He's more of a, even though he's making $6.25 million, he was brought in as that experienced guy, as that stabilizing force. And I think that with those expectations, I think he's set up to succeed. Okay,
and he scores big goals too. Something that, he's a wrongly labeled as a choke artist. That guy scores some big goals in San Jose history.
And believe me, Babcock had a lot to do with Marleau coming to Toronto. They're both from Saskatchewan. He coached them in the Olympics a couple times. I think the main reason that Marleau said the right things about, well, I want to play with the young kids. I think one of the main reasons he came there was to play for Mike Babcock. The last list here, three
breaking news that might be better than the last list.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna take a risk here. This is real hockey. So people probably know there's going to be a team in China for the Canadian Women's Hockey League.
Yes.
But the NWHL just released a press release. Now, I interviewed Danny Ryland, and I covered the Isabel Cup, and she could be kind of a tough cookie. She could be like I would say even a little sarcastic at times. And so they were saying basically in this release, as they prepare for the upcoming season, they want to extend best wishes to all the players that are basically leaving their league and are could be playing in China. And so it's kind of interesting. And then they mentioned they want to thank Kelly Stack, who is a heck of a player, along with other players with agreements in China that have not been officially introduced yet for everything they did for us. Like, that is very catty. I'm sorry. This is a big fight now between these two leagues. And she's basically trying to even say, hey, thanks to those players, she named one of them. I don't know if Kelly Stack was named by the CWHL as going there. And if she wasn't, then that's going to create some friction.
Russ, the funny thing is that from what I understand, and I could be wrong, but there's not a lot of information coming out on this. This team, it's a Chinese team playing in the CWHL, and essentially I don't think they're playing any games in China. I think they're playing as a road team.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Yeah, so this team is going to be on the road 365 days a year. I think all it is they're set there. They want
agreements in China, so maybe they'll practice there preseason and those kinds of things. But but they're not playing there. I don't think so.
That's going to be a hell of a jet lag. All I can say. All right, let's go through this last one quickly. Jonathan Drouin in Montreal, Brandon Saad in Columbus, Brandon Saad in Chicago, and the player who he was traded for, Artemi Panarin, in Columbus. Which one, Ty, is best set up for either failure or success?
Drouin in Montreal, because it's Montreal and it's Jonathan Drouin, and I think that's going to be a big thing. People talk about Claude Julien not loving young kids, and trusting them. That's complete garbage. You saw the way he utilized Sagan when he was developed. You saw the way he utilized Pasternak before he was fired. I think Drouin will be a real game breaker for them, especially if he gets off to some chemistry with some of their centermen. If they have a 1-2 punch, it's Galchenyuk and Drouin. That's a pretty damn good 1-2 right there.
Russ,
can you repeat the list again?
Drouin, Saad, and Panarin.
Right. I think Panarin in Columbus is the tough one because he has gotten to play with Patrick Kane. He had a real good chemistry with him. We don't know what he's going to be like without Patrick Kane. We haven't seen Panarin really in the NHL without playing with one of the best players to ever play in the NHL. Mm-hmm. So the expectations are going to still be sky high for him. And what if he doesn't gain chemistry with the players in Columbus? Like, who is going to be the guy that he's, is it going to be Wenberg? Is it, I don't know. I don't know who he's going to click with. But if he doesn't, you might not see the same kind of numbers out of him.
Right. I'm a little concerned for Saad in Chicago for the simple reason that he was brought back to, this will bring Jonathan Toews back. This, bring the guy back who won cup. And it might not be that it was just a bad combination for Jonathan Toews. It may be that Jonathan Toews is getting older and he's not as good as he was. And, Brandon Saad coming back or not coming back is not going to be a determining factor. But
Vlad coming back was not a success.
Right, but I agree with Ty. I think Drouin is under immense pressure in Montreal. Now it sounds like what they're going to do is put Galchenyuk back up the middle, which we know that's going to be a success. But the pressure of Drouin being a francophone player, signing the big contract, costing them a really great defensive prospect in Sergachev, I think a ton of pressure. And the thing is, if he succeeds, he will be lauded as the greatest French-Canadian player since Guy Lafleur. But that's a lot of pressure.
Claude Julien. I think Claude Julien could really quiet this quickly if he plays everybody the right way, like he did abandon Galchenyuk too quick last year, but he didn't have a lot of time to react because he was trying to make the playoffs. This year he's got a full season. He's got to give them a half a season to sort of really catch fire. And I think Julian is just as important to this as Drouin.
Yeah.
Watch their training camp. Claude likes to run. If he can run a full training camp, which he will be able to this year because there's no World Cup or anything like that,
right.
Really focuses on building that team chemistry, that team unity.
Yeah.
So if they get that, I mean, all bets are off.
2 quick notes here. First one, William Nylander's celebration at the World Championships, jumping into the arms and tackling basically Henrik Lundqvist, apparently did have a medical effect on Henrik Lundqvist. The blue-eyed wonder from New York did have to have knee surgery after Nylander jumped on him. And apparently the surgery is successful and he'll be ready for training camp. But Russ, as soon as I saw it, I knew he was hurt.
We all did. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Lundqvist tried to calm that down by saying, yeah, my hip's a little sore. In 4 to 6 weeks, I'll feel better.
Right.
But that was because he knew he had to get surgery.
Right. Yeah.
This is not going to create a lot of love between the fan bases here with the Leafs and the Rangers. It's really not. And
it's not like he took out his knee like Lawrence Taylor took out Theismann.
No, but this is something where this is a rule. And I'm sure Ty follows this rule when he plays pickup hockey. Young guys don't jump into the arms of old guys. They're just not ready for it. If you win a championship,
if I ever score a goal, I'm celebrating to the moon. That doesn't happen. It does not happen. So I'm jumping in anyone's arms. I'm jumping in the referee's arms if you let me. That's how rare those things are. But no, I get it, but it's tough. I mean, hey, I can't sit here and harp on a guy for celebrating for his country when
I'm not mad at the guy. It's an
No, I know, but I'm campaigning for emotion and for Olympics, so I'm in no place to judge, I guess.
Yeah, it's an accident, and look, it could happen just for Lundqvist walking down the streets of New York, or if you ever see Lundqvist in his Instagram account, he's jumping off the dock in Sweden. He could do that there, jumping in the water. So it definitely could happen. I just think it's kind of odd that now we find out because Lundqvist is on this Swedish tour with the NHL. And, here's the other thing about that. So he's on this Swedish tour with the NHL, right? And the NHL is pushing it on Twitter, but they're saying if you want to read it, use Google Translate. And it's like, why are you feeding this to the American public while he's in Sweden? Why don't you just put it out in both languages? Because what happens is when we put it in Google Translate, it changes it. Like if I really wanted to use those quotes, you can't because
God knows you're not going to get any miscommunication from Google Translate.
So I laughed at that yesterday because I'm thinking, well, they're in Sweden, but they're still working the base in North America, and they're like, if you're going to do that, then why not just put it out in both?
And finally, when we mentioned Ilya Samsonov yesterday, who could very well possibly be Russia's goaltender in the Olympics. He's playing in the KHL right now.
Yeah.
Story came out in SB Nation yesterday regarding the fact that his contract in the KHL up after this year, and that there was some concern, especially after the news of Kaprizov yesterday, that maybe Samsonov would stay in Russia, but apparently he's willing to come over to North America next year, and even if he has to play in the American Hockey League, because he probably wouldn't get any work behind Grubauer and Holtby, but he seems to be willing to come over to the American Hockey League next year, Russ. That's a big thing for the Caps because this is a big prospect for them.
It's a big thing for the Caps, and it wouldn't happen if they didn't have Alex Ovechkin. Alex Ovechkin is the big equalizer here. The Wild don't have anybody like that who could call the kid and say, listen, I'm excited to play with you. Come over. And Ovechkin is probably doing that. And I don't blame him for doing that. He's going to bring over a great goalie. I think it was funny. I saw a quote from the story. I didn't read the whole story, but where he's got like a Caps jersey and he's all excited. And look, he's a hell of a goalie. He might be the best goalie not in the NHL. And so he'll play a year in the AHL, and then he'll back up, and then they'll have to worry about it. But if they didn't have Alex Ovechkin, I don't know. I think it would be a little different. I think it would be a little harder to bring him over.
Okay, great show, guys. Thank you, Ty, for being on the show. And that crying that you hear in the background is Bills Nation ready to I think.
Well, I got the whole trade here. They
okay,
got,
go ahead.
All right,
Give it
let's
to
hear
us.
They got EJ from the Rams. They got EJ Gaines, cornerback,
They didn't get EJ Manuel back, did they?
and they got a second-round pick in 2018 from the Rams. They sent Sammy Watkins and a sixth-round pick. So they moved up 4 rounds in the draft. But
Now, what did they give up for Jordan Matthews?
Second-round pick, probably.
The second trade saw the Bills send cornerback Ronald Darby to the Eagles for Jordan Matthews and a third-round pick.
Ronald Darby was their number one corner after they traded Stephon Gilmore.
And the Eagles are desperate for defensive backfield help. They schooled the I mean, look, Jordan Matthews is a decent receiver, right? But he is a slot receiver. He's like your possession guy. The Bills got housed here. They did.
Yeah. This. You know what this is? This is the Bills saying we are tanking.
We're going to compete with the Jets for the worst team in the league.
And just to say this, the Bills gave up a first-round pick in the following draft to move up 4 slots to pick Sammy Watkins, and 4 years later they get a second-round pick. This shows the incompetence of the Buffalo Bills.
The dogs, man. It is.
Yep. Okay. All right. For Ty Anderson, for Russ Cohen, thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.